I spent the last 2 days researching car paint, and I finally figured it out. I got it all figured out. So I'm now going to take the time to write down my extensive knowledge from 2 days of research and a lot of, I guess you could say, common sense. I was putting together the pieces because a lot of paints are purposefully kept very secretive of what's really going on. They don't want to tell you what the paint is. So, first thing, the most important thing I discovered was this. There is one type of car paint, lacquer. Believe it. That, I think, is a good place to start. Next, there are 4 variations of this. That have the following names: Lacquer, Urethane, Acrylic Enamel, and oil-based enamel / alkyd. Okay. All 4 of these are forms of lacquer. All 4 of these are forms of enamel, which just means hard finishing or hard drying paint. All 4 of these are acrylics, which just means plastics. The only difference is slight changes in what you are mixing into your acrylic plastic. Okay. Lacquer, acrylic plastic soaked in thinner until it dissolves into a liquid state. Thins via thinner. Also known as lacquer thinner. Can also be thickened by letting thinner air off of it because thinner, when exposed to outside air, turns into gas, just like boiling water or gasoline does. Now, here's where it gets really cool. All paint in auto stores, from touch-up bottles to touch-up pens to spray cans, including spray primers and primer pens and cans, are all lacquer, 100% basic lacquer. AutoZone spray duplicolor brand revealed this secret in its written description. It is a lacquer. But most touch-up pens and bottles don't admit they are a lacquer, since lacquer gets a bad rap. What's up, spiritual? Lacquer is a dirty word in paints, so you won't see it on many cans or products. Instead, they label their can as acrylic enamel or something like that, which is not technically wrong, because all paint is acrylic, all paint is enamel art. Acrylic just means plastic. So that is just a sneaky way to avoid saying, hey, I'm a lacquer. Lacquer gets a bad name because it was used exclusively in the 20s through 60s on cars, and it doesn't last in the sun for more than 5 to 10 years unless you keep it protected with wax. The reason it doesn't last is because it doesn't have much UV resistance or UV resisting additives added in, or glues added in. Meaning hardeners or activators or catalysts, which have good UV resistance. As far as compatibility, you can spray lacquer or brush lacquer over any automotive finish, including urethane. You can also go urethane over lacquer, but you have to mist coat it, since the thinner in urethane will mix into the lacquer, reactivating it. And turning the dried acrylic resin back into a paint, which needs to gas off. So as long as you mist coat and give plenty of gas off time, urethane can go over lacquer. This means Rust-Oleum primer or any automotive touch-up paint from a spray can or any non-automotive labeled acrylic enamel spray can. All spray can paints can be painted over with urethane clear coat, for example, which is super hard and UV resistant and long lasting. Okay. After you mist coat urethane onto lacquer, giving plenty of time for full cure, you mist coat again and wait again, and eventually cover up all the lacquer, and all the lacquer did have time to gas off, the thinners being soaked into or absorbed into it. Then you can spray heavy once the lacquer is sealed off. Simple. If you don't do this, the gases trying to escape the lacquer will lift the urethane off. Urethane. This is just lacquer with very hard glue mixed in. and mix it with activator slash catalyst slash hardener, and the hardener causes the glue to chemically cross-link which makes it so hard and hard to chip. Urethane still has the normal lacquer stuff in it. Pigment, powder, acrylic, plastic, resins, resin, and thinner. It just happens to have a lot of glue mixed in too. Possibly something similar to epoxy resin is mixed in, or perhaps polyester resin, like what you use for fiberglass work. These resins, which suspend the acrylic and thinner and then prevent the paint from drying when exposed to air, at least not for a super long time. They will just thicken as the thinner gases off and will stay gooey. But if you add the hardener, then it chemically cross-links and gets hard fast. Another added benefit of urethane is it probably has UV resisting additives mixed in that prevent browning of the color. The hardener itself is quite UV resistant. Acrylic enamel. This is lacquer with very little difference from just plain lacquer. Unlike urethane, it doesn't have a bunch of glue in it. It probably has linseed oil in it, which is a fairly fast drying oil. And it also has thinner and acrylic, resin, plastic, of course, and pigment powder. some acrylic enamel will have some glue in it, just like urethane, which requires hardener to activate. So in some formulas, it is basically the same as urethane. A glue-based lacquer, or glue-mixed lacquer. Acrylic enamel is confusing terminology because all paint is acrylic and all paint is enamel, but we are talking about car paint specific acrylic enamel you buy for painting cars by the gallon using a spray gun. Unlike urethane, acrylic enamel will dry without hardener, and hardener then is optional. But some formulas may have glues that are mixed in that require activator to fully cure, or else they just stay sticky. Acrylic enamel of this sort is different from acrylic enamel spray clear, like Croelick clear, in that all the spray clears are just plain lacquer, and all the spray can paints in general are all spray can lacquer. Acrylic enamel for cars that is expensive will be souped up lacquer, in that it will have UV resisting additives, possibly linseed oils, and most likely some glues that require activator involved, which means it is more of a urethane true, and not much different. The thing that separates urethane labeled car paint from acrylic enamel labeled car paint. This urethane will have a lot more glue and will definitely not be able to air dry without a hardener. But besides that, they will be very similar in formula. Oil-based enamel / alkyd. This is lacquer that has oil mixed in. It is generally used for tractors and other outdoor equipment because it is super cheap, $5 per quart, and it dries just as hard and beautiful as other paints in the car labeled cans. Of course it does. It is the same thing. Lacquer. Oil-based enamel / alkyd. I'm now recording everything I learned in my notes. And I'm going to create a YouTube video of this, which is going to really be educational for people who just for once want to know what the hell is going on with all these different paints that are very confusing, very misleadingly labeled, and very secretive because paint companies want competitive advantage and they don't want people buying cheap paint and recreating their paint, and they don't want people knowing that their paint is a paint that is generally frowned upon because they don't want to call it lacquer, blah, blah, blah. It's all very confusing, but I'm laying out the truth right here. Okay, oil-based enamel / alkyd is the it's very similar in formula to oil-based artist paint. The difference might be it has thinner in it and perhaps gloss additives in it. The rest is same. Let's see. Oil-based paint takes up to 6 months to dry. It dries via oxygen. Exposure to open air. Oxidization. Sparkcast. I have to do this. This is important. The world needs what I'm doing. I'm saving a lot of people right now. Okay. This is educational. I'm regurgitating in an organized format about 30 hours of intense research. Okay. using Rust-Oleum oil-based paint, which also comes in a can called Professional Rust-Oleum Enamel, which may or may not say oil-based on the can, is a popular ghetto way to paint a car for college students or people on a budget. It is frowned upon by car experts because it is hard to paint over since it is oil-based. So when painting real car paint over it, these paints usually lift off or bubble off and don't adhere well. However, if the oil-based paint is mixed with an enamel hardener and given perhaps a month or two to fully dry out, you can paint it with urethane, clear coat, or color coat, and it will stick. But most likely the thinners will reactivate the oil-based paint's acrylic resins, and the thinners will be absorbed into these resins and require gassing off. So to solve this, you must mist coat, just like if painting over normal lacquers, and allow a lot of time to gas off the thinners. And the mist coat allows porousness for the gases to escape. Don't want to trap the gas because this will cause the urethane to peel off. It's not boring, Sports Barcas. This is very educational. So for those wishing to do the $50 Rust-Oleum paint job, I say go for it, and no need to fear not being able to to use real car paint, i.e. urethane, later on. You just have to wait possibly a year for the oil-based paint to fully harden down to its very core, not just the outer layers. And then when going over it with urethane, use the mist coat and gas off method to slowly add the urethane without introducing any trapped gas scenarios. Dirty Ducky, what is wrong with you? First of all, so there you have it. I'm not a married man. The only downside to the $50 Rust-Oleum paint job is the oil-based paint will get chalky when exposed to sun for a long time. Keeping it waxed will prevent this, however. You can always rebuff it too. The other downside is to protect it with urethane clear coat, which is ideal. You have to wait many months to let the oil all fully dry out. Just like you do with a artist's oil painting. If you were to clear coat it before this, the oil-based paint will stay soft underneath the clear coat. Which is bad. So I say the $50 paint job is good, and it just requires more maintenance to keep that shine, and it requires a long wait period before a careful mist coat gas off consideration giving paint job over it with urethane, which is the good stuff, but very expensive. Now, cool tricks. Urethane over oil-based. Already talked about, but as long as the oil-based paint has time to fully harden, up to 6 months, possibly 2 months if you use a enamel hardener with it. Well, I don't need to say I already talked about. It's the cool trick section, subsection. Shoot, it's up to 12 months, really. And don't apply very thick. And you can go over it with urethane, clear coat, or even color coats, base/clear, single stage, etc., and thereby convert to a long-lasting professional auto paint job, despite using cheap non-auto oil-based paint as your foundation. So the myth that oil-based paint needs to be removed before switching to real car paint, i.e. urethane systems, is a lie. You just have to let it fully harden first, and then mist coat it, allowing plenty of time for cure and gassing off of thinners that soak into the oil-based paint when you spray. And you have to do this with many light mist coats until all gases are gone from the oil-based sponge of thinners, and you have to eventually then work up the mist coats until the oil-based paint is fully coated, preventing any thinner from soaking into it. Once that is achieved, you can spray urethane as thick as you want without it affecting the oil-based paint in any way. Urethane over lacquer. Same mist coat goes apply as above. You can do it right away since lacquer gases off and fully dries within half hour to 1 hour, but best to let it gas off 24 hours to be safe. Then you can urethane mist coat with plenty time to wait for gassing off any thinner that soaks into lacquer. 1 hour between mist coats at least, since you do not want gases coming off the lacquer after urethane is cured with full coverage over the lacquer, as the gas would then not have anywhere to go and it would lift up the urethane paint off the lacquer and cause peeling. Now this is awesome. Krylon and other clear spray can paints labeled as enamels or acrylic enamels are all in fact just lacquer in clear color. They simply don't have pigment powder added, but are identical to lacquer colored paint. What's up, chicken wing? So you are able to poke a hole in the top of the spray can and allow compressed air that resides there to blow out the can. Then cut open the top of the can and pour out the contents. Clear lacquer. Next, up X-ray book. Allow the clear lacquer to air off or gas off or flash for a while, possibly 5 hours or so, being sure to stir occasionally, which will remove a lot of the excessive thinner in it and thicken it. Once it gets to a good brush on paint consistency, you can mix pigment into it to make it a traditional lacquer color paint. This paint can be brushed onto car nicks and scratches as a touch-up paint, or used as nail polish, which is also lacquer. You can also use it as a clear coat for automotive touch-up of clear coat scratches, or to go over your automotive color coat touch-up. Considering all automotive touch-up paints are lacquer, this method will give you professional results no different than store-bought automotive touch-up paint. For creating the pigments, you can use water-based acrylic artist paint. The water will dry away fast, and the acrylic resin and pigment will remain. So it won't act adversely with the lacquer, which is just clear acrylic resin and thinner. Same stuff. Homemade auto touch-up paint. Uh-oh. Sucks when I have to do this part. I don't like using word wrap, so I press enter and I set the width of my text in Notepad. Because word wrap sucks. Okay. Also, to create brush and auto touch-up, you can buy your car's color from a auto parts store, say duplicolor brand, touch-up spray paint, and you can extract it from the can and allow it to gas off for several hours, stirring occasionally to make it thicker so that you can brush it on with a good, thicker consistency than you would want with a spray on approach. Then once you are happy with the thickness, you can bottle it and use it as auto touch-up paint, and it will be just as professional and the same material, lacquer, as the brush and touch-up you buy. The difference is the brush and touch-up comes in pens for $25, and this comes in a spray can for $6 to $8. So you save a lot by not buying the fancy, expensive to manufacture pen. Another cool trick to save even more is to buy spray cans of white or black or whatever that are labeled as enamel and are marketed for indoor use, like on furniture. Well, indoor, outdoor. Such as Essentials paint. It says nothing as to what kind of paint it is on the can. It just shows a picture of a painted lampstand table. Paints like this, since they aren't marketed for vehicles, are priced at $3.50 or $3.89 or so, and are made of the same lacquer as the $8.99 cans, and even up to $12 cans you find that have a picture of a hot rod on the can. So you just don't want to buy the cans marketed for vehicles. You can avoid it because you get a better deal this way. Then, using these paints, you can create your touch-up auto paints. Note that Testor's hobby paints are lacquer paints, and they can be used to mix custom colors with your spray can extracted lacquers. Also note that spray can extracted lacquer clear can be used with mica cosmetic powder to create any pearl coat to use for pearl layer over the ground coat layer on pearl paint job cars. You can do the same thing to create metallic flake paints and take flake paints. Although, from what I've seen, unlike pearl paints, metallic paints generally have the metal, aka mica, soaked in metallic colored paint. Mixed directly into the paint color coat. as opposed to the pearl, which is sprayed as a clear coat mixed with pearl over the color base coat to create a 3D effect. Also of important note, do not buy metallic powders marketed for vehicle paint. They cost $20 for a little bag, whereas mica powders marketed for cosmetics are like $2 to $3 for a bag of the same size. It is the same stuff. Another cool thing is for metallic powder, you just buy a kit of metallic eyeshadow for like $3, and you can get all the metallic mica powder this way and mix any metallic paint this way for an exact match. Homemade cheap urethane custom paints. You can buy 130 to 150 per gallon urethane mixed in the color you want, or you can save by just buying clear urethane for like $77 per gallon from Amazon, and then mix your color in by mixing up any color you want with artist acrylic water-based paint, mixing that into your urethane clear paint to create any color urethane. And then you can use the same urethane clear to clear coat your color coat. Also, you can use mica cosmetic powders from eyeshadow kits to create metal flake or metallic paints when combined with your acrylic artist paint. And then mix that into your clear urethane paint. This way you can get 1 gallon of any color urethane for spraying your car or 95 or so instead of 130 to even 190 per gallon by pre-color mixed urethane. Okay, so that is a comprehensive guide to all things automotive paint. I am the master of it.